Halloween was always my favorite time of year. The thrill of dressing up, the crisp autumn air, and the promise of candy and spooky tales filled my heart with anticipation. As a child, I couldn't wait for the day when I could venture out into the neighborhood, collecting sweet treats and testing the boundaries of my courage. Little did I know that one Halloween would become a nightmarish memory that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I was 11 years old, and my friends and I had planned an adventure like no other. We aimed to explore the abandoned house at the end of our street, the one that had earned a sinister reputation over the years. Some said it was cursed, while others claimed it was haunted. All we knew was that it had stood empty for decades, its windows boarded up and its overgrown yard shrouded in darkness. On the evening of Halloween, we met at my house, our excitement barely contained. Our costumes varied from classic monsters to superheroes, each of us seeking the perfect blend of fear and courage. Armed with flashlights, we made our way to the foreboding house, our hearts pounding with both trepidation and anticipation. The moon cast an eerie glow on the crumbling structure as we approached. The ancient oak trees loomed like sentinels, their twisted branches clawing at the night sky. My friend, Max, reached for the rusty gate, its squeal breaking the silence. As we crossed the threshold, an unnatural chill settled over us, and we exchanged nervous glances. The house's facade was an imposing sight, its once grand architecture now reduced to decay and ruin. The weathered paint had peeled away, and the windows were shrouded in darkness. A sense of foreboding hung in the air, and I began to question the wisdom of our decision. But as true adventurers, we pushed forward. We explored the ground floor first, our flashlights cutting through the darkness, revealing broken furniture and forgotten relics. Dust motes danced in the beams of light, creating an ethereal spectacle that felt almost magical. As we ascended the creaking staircase, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Whispers of unseen entities filled the air, and the temperature seemed to plummet with each step we took. We reached the second floor, our courage still intact, but that's when the horrors truly began. In one room, we found a child's playroom, its walls adorned with faded wallpaper featuring nursery rhymes and cheerful animals. The room seemed innocent enough, but an eerie feeling gripped us as we continued to explore. My flashlight flickered, and the toys in the room came to life. Dolls with glassy eyes and twisted limbs began to move, their disjointed joints creating a grotesque dance. Teddy bears shifted on their own, and a toy piano played a haunting melody, seemingly of its own accord. Panic set in as we witnessed the unholy spectacle before us. We rushed out of the room, but the horrors persisted. The walls of the hallway seemed to close in, and the whispers grew louder, their words incomprehensible but dripping with malevolence. I knew then that we had ventured into a place of darkness and despair. In a final room, we encountered an ancient mirror that bore strange inscriptions. My friends and I gazed into it, only to see our own reflections twisted and grotesque. The mirror seemed to reveal our deepest fears and anxieties, manifesting them in horrifying forms. We were confronted by the demons of our own minds, trapped in a nightmarish reflection of our psyches. In our desperation, we shattered the mirror, but it was too late. The house had ensnared us, and there was no escape. The darkness closed in, and the walls of the house seemed to breathe, their inhales and exhales resonating with our terrified hearts. The night wore on, and the horrors persisted. The once abandoned house revealed its secrets, and we were powerless to resist. The malevolent forces that dwelled within tormented us, feeding off our fear and despair. It was dawn when we finally stumbled out of the house, our minds scarred by the horrors we had witnessed. Halloween had transformed from a night of fun and adventure into a night of true terror. The abandoned house had claimed a piece of our innocence, leaving us forever changed by the Halloween horrors that lurked within its walls. Halloween had always been a special time in my small hometown. The entire community came alive with decorations, costumes, and the promise of eerie tales. It was a time when the town's dark history seemed to blend with the present, creating a night that was both thrilling and terrifying. One particular Halloween, when I was still a teenager, remains etched in my memory as a night of unimaginable horror. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the streets, I prepared for a night of trick-or-treating with my friends. We had grown out of the childish Halloween games, opting instead for an evening of exploration and adventure. Our plan was simple: to venture into the woods that bordered our town, a place rumored to be the site of strange occurrences and supernatural events. Costumed as a motley crew of characters, we made our way to the edge of the forest. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their branches clawing at the night sky. The darkness was punctuated by the eerie glow of carved pumpkins that marked the path, leading us deeper into the woods. As we ventured further from the safety of the town's glow, the atmosphere grew heavier, charged with an unexplainable tension. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint cries of owls and the rustle of unseen creatures. I could feel the eyes of the forest upon us, watching, waiting. We arrived at a clearing in the woods, where an old, crumbling cemetery lay in silence. Tombstones jutted from the earth like crooked teeth, some so weathered that the names and dates were lost to time. It was said that this place was the final resting ground of those who had met tragic and gruesome ends, their spirits lingering to seek retribution or release. In the center of the cemetery stood a mausoleum, its heavy stone door slightly ajar. It was as if the structure beckoned us forward, inviting us to explore its dark depths. A shiver ran down my spine as my friends and I exchanged hesitant glances, but the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. We pushed open the heavy door, its groan echoing through the chamber. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and damp earth. The walls bore inscriptions, cryptic symbols, and eerie drawings that seemed to pulse with otherworldly energy. As we ventured deeper, a chill enveloped us, seeping into our very bones. A sinister whispering filled the air, a haunting cacophony of voices that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The language was incomprehensible, and the words sent shivers down our spines. In the dim light of our flashlights, we came upon a crypt that bore the name of Samuel Blackwood, a man who had met a gruesome end in the woods. The legend went that he had become a malevolent spirit, forever seeking vengeance on those who trespassed in his domain. As we read the inscription, the temperature dropped, and a sinister laughter filled the chamber. Shadows danced on the walls, coalescing into grotesque forms that seemed to emerge from the very stone. The spirits of the forgotten dead were awakened, and they were not pleased with our intrusion. Desperation set in as we tried to flee, but the mausoleum had other plans. The heavy stone door slammed shut, trapping us inside with the vengeful spirits. Our screams echoed through the chamber as we fought to escape the supernatural prison that had ensnared us. The spirits closed in, their ghostly fingers reaching for us. They whispered tales of suffering and despair, recounting their tragic ends and the injustices they had endured. It was a nightmarish ordeal, and we were powerless to resist their malevolent presence. In a final act of desperation, we managed to break open a hidden passage, leading us out of the mausoleum and into the woods. The spirits howled in fury, their anguished cries fading into the distance as we fled. We emerged from the woods, shaken and terrified, our Halloween adventure forever tainted by the horrors we had witnessed. It was a night when the line between the living and the dead blurred, a night when the past and the present collided in a terrifying clash of supernatural forces. Halloween, once a night of fun and revelry, had become a night of unimaginable horror, a night we would never forget. Halloween had always been a time of excitement and dread for me. As a child, I eagerly anticipated the thrill of dressing up, the hunt for candy, and the spine-tingling tales of the supernatural that were told around bonfires. But one Halloween night, the boundary between childhood imagination and the chilling unknown blurred in a way I would never forget. I was 16 at the time, and my group of friends had decided to celebrate the holiday with a haunted house challenge. Each of us was responsible for creating a spooky atmosphere in one room of my family's old, creaky house. We intended to outdo each other, coming up with the scariest decorations and tales to terrify one another. As the host, I was in charge of the basement. It was an area of the house that had always felt eerie, with its low ceiling, dim lighting, and the remnants of forgotten family relics. I decided to go all out, crafting a story about a long-lost ancestor who had practiced dark magic and was rumored to haunt the basement. To set the mood, I spent days preparing the basement with cobwebs, eerie candles, and a fake, dusty spell book I had purchased at a local antique store. My story was ready as well, involving a cursed family bloodline and the lingering spirit of a malevolent witch. That Halloween night, my friends arrived dressed in their costumes, their excitement matching my own. We began our tour, each room growing progressively scarier. It was all in good fun, and the atmosphere was electric with the thrill of the spooky season. When it was my turn to guide them to the basement, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. I had created a narrative that was meant to be scary, but I couldn't have predicted what would actually transpire. As we descended the narrow staircase, I began my tale, weaving the story of the cursed ancestor and the witch's malevolence. My friends listened with rapt attention, their faces illuminated by the flickering candlelight. But as I reached the climax of the story, something inexplicable happened. The air in the basement grew icy cold, and I could see my breath. The candles flickered wildly, and a strange, unearthly presence seemed to fill the room. A low, disembodied whisper began to emanate from the corners, as though unseen voices were joining in the narrative. Fear gripped me, but I pressed on with the story, trying to dismiss the strange occurrences as mere coincidence. As I concluded the tale, the room grew eerily silent. My friends, who had been captivated by the story, now appeared unsettled. And then, it happened. From the shadows emerged a figure, clad in tattered robes and bearing a haunting resemblance to the witch I had described in my narrative. It moved with a spectral grace, gliding towards us, its eyes devoid of life. I watched in horror as the figure reached out its ethereal hand and touched one of my friends, who let out a blood-curdling scream. Panic erupted in the basement as we all scrambled to escape. The figure seemed to multiply, its presence becoming more menacing with each passing moment. We raced up the staircase, its narrow walls feeling like a suffocating tunnel. My friends were in a frenzy, their faces pale with terror. I could hear them muttering about the apparition we had encountered, about the icy chill that had settled over the room, and the bone-chilling whispers that still echoed in our ears. As we reached the safety of the well-lit living room, we gathered to make sense of what had just happened. Some suggested it was a prank, but the fear etched on all our faces told a different story. We couldn't deny that something unexplainable had occurred in the basement that night. Halloween had transformed from a night of fun and games into a night of true terror and uncertainty. The boundary between our playful narratives and the supernatural had blurred in a way we had never anticipated. The basement, once just an eerie setting for a ghost story, had become a place of chilling mystery and unexplained phenomena. The Halloween night that was meant to be filled with laughter and candy had left us with a chilling experience that we would carry with us for the rest of our lives, a night when the line between the imaginary and the unknown had vanished into thin air.